Welcome, everybody. Simulation took 257 on the way. Guru, how are you? Chris, Ebony, how are you guys doing? J. Paul, Jessica is in the house. How are everybody doing? Okay. Who is Walter Bosley? I'm so uninformed. It's embarrassing. Let's see. Oh, wait, this face is really familiar. You guys want to tell me why is he so familiar? Welcome, everybody. Pakistani pilot. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. Good to see you. So good to see you. Indeed, if you want to help out, please come join Twitch. LaserX83 is the handle. By the way, do they maybe I can already play like a game that I'm always playing. Like, do they have what is it called? Why I just got a weird email. Do they play Polytopia on there? And they're constantly trying to escape the fate of playing what they require. One follows. Yeah. Let's get my Twitch to a different level. Still stuck in the same place basically with the other ones. What did he do? He's such a crazy boy. Wait, what just happened? Don't tell me oh, no, I didn't. Okay. My hair is so crazy today. Okay. Let's dive into some topics today. I don't feel so bad. Recently, Nico encouraged me to watch the live of Stephen Wolfram. And he, I thought I was bad in terms of taking 1 point and running with it and just ignoring all other questions. But I guess it does happen quite often. And now I don't feel so bad about it. But it was a really enjoyable live. It was lovely. I'm glad that I joined. He's definitely a lot more knowledgeable than I am. And that is always fun to listen to. Conducting you telling this problem. Okay, cool. Also, Chris, did you get the invite to be the moderator this time? Did it work? Did it finally work? It might feeling a little spicy tonight. Just a little less spicy, yeah. I think yesterday was very combative. I was so tired, and I think my body was also really shot after putting some emphasis on physical workouts. Oh, it worked! That's amazing, Chris. I'm so excited. Kirsten, how are you? Good to see you. Taking some Deems and M tonight. Wish me luck. Good luck. Hold on, I gotta comb this. This drives me crazy. Okay, that feels a little better. Simulation is the matrix? Not quite. It's more the matrix upside down. So the simulation space is the computational space is the real space, and the physical space is the subspace. So basically the other way around. Guru said, "I wish I had hair." No, I'm happy with my hair. I just don't want it to be crazy. But Stacy's saying, "Well, my belief is I build better." What does that mean? Also, if you guys want to join our Discord community, you can find the links to that. I'm sure the moderators will leave it here, but also you can find the links to that on my YouTube channel in the main page, and also on TikTok in the link tree. And you can visit our website, codeofreality.com, where we have more information about everything we're doing, and we have our merch there and details about the lasers and all that good stuff. So you can go ahead and check that out. You put this as a link here. What's up, Turtle? Val is in the house. Hey, I like the hey. Huh? Stacy's everything okay? Is everything okay at home? Gustavo, how are you, brother? So good to see you. It's pretty early in the morning or late at night for you, no? I have no idea what you're talking about, Stacy. Nico, how are you, brother? I was just talking about how I'm quitting live streaming because I'm no longer your favorite live streamer. No. Wolfram is great. He's really, really great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me know. I'll be joining more often. Does he stream once a month? Once a week? How often does he stream? Wait, why isn't it? There's no. There you go. 1 in the morning. It's not too bad. Good to see you, Gustavo. Okay, let's see what we can dive into today. The question that Wolfram is being asked are fun questions, but I guess they're about kind of like deep scientific stuff and science trivia, which obviously he's a lot more knowledgeable at. Wolfram is my favorite streamer. Once a week, amazing. Yeah, I will be. Is it always on Wednesdays? My favorite streamer would be Terrence McKenna if he was still alive. Let's start there, for sure. But without a question, what's up, April? Still think simulation theory doesn't imply there's a God, but it's said if there is, it's not what I think of some creators. Well, a God would be literally whomever is simulating in space. So by definition, it necessitates a God. What is a God if not an entity that created the world you live in? That if you're simulated by another civilization, that civilization is your God. If you're talking about a biblical God, it has a slightly different flavor, but I would say it's only in terms of execution. Yeah, Wolfram is great. I'm talking about the body. Wait, what are we talking about? I am talking about the body making better blood by removing the old. I don't, Stacy. What are you talking about? How is this related to what we're doing here? Did you ask him any questions yesterday, Nico? Feel free to come on and talk about it. It'll be an interesting exchange of ideas. Well, if it's the same day of the week, then it has to be because yesterday was Wednesday. And again, reminding everybody that if you have a particular subject that you want to open up, disagree about, or push back against, we can do this by you coming on Discord or on TikTok, and I can bring you up and we can chat about it. Just make sure you have coherent points in place. He debunked the Boltzmann myth that entropy drove him insane. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a debunking that was. He just stated the fact that there was some underlying conditions that probably led to that were way more active than the everything that was going on with the back and forth with entropy. It's kind of like Cantor's case. Cantor's case is interesting because it is the case that every time he tried to work on infinities, he ended up in an insane asylum. And that happened twice, and there's definitely, it seems like there's a correlation there. So that's, I feel like that's a more interesting case to look at, of actually losing somebody's mind. My thermodynamics textbook said it's my turn to follow his footsteps. Wait, whose footsteps? Boltzmann's or Wolfram's? You're going to be losing your mind? Is there any compelling evidence that we live in a simulation? I mean, this is what this channel is all about. Witchmaster. I am claiming to have found an experiment that can decisively, well, decisively is a strong word, but definitely point to some structure there. How are you doing? Do you feel like you're losing your mind a little bit, Nico? Wait, how do I do the... Oh, I don't even know how to send you an invite. Let's see. There you go. If you feel like chatting today. How are you, brother? How you doing, man?
Yeah, pretty chill Thursday.
Chill Thursday is good.
Yeah. I was thinking about the art problem of consciousness. Have you looked into that, or at least like what that framework is, what that question is?
Of course, that's kind of... Oh, hold on. I think I have to... 1 second. Audio default. Yeah, everybody can hear Nico, I'm assuming now, right? There you go. Go ahead.
So then I said, that's no kindergartner, that's my wife.
That's not a kindergartner. That's not my wife. That's a horse. Nice.
I'm asking Danny about the hard problem of consciousness. I've heard it enough times where I'm like, oh, this is like a framework. This is like a formalized like thing, and I didn't know it was. But I was wondering if you can give like the background of it or something.
Sure. I mean, no, that's literally at the center of what I do. So I think the hard problem of consciousness is the fact that there's this an explanatory gap between whatever technical framework you want to put around what you think is a corollary with consciousness as an operation and what consciousness is in terms of experience, the quality of it. And it's not like, the funny thing is that it's kind of hard to put forth as an argument that you can make an ultimate claim, but this seems to be one of these cases in which you can make an ultimate claim. You can say that even in principle, it's impossible to jump from one to the other without some kind of a miracle happening, right? It's just because it seems to be like a different kind of a thing. And every attempt that scientists have to reconcile what it might be in terms of operation to function seems to be kind of a sleight of hand trick that people do. Like, I don't know if you read Anil Seth's work. He has a book called Being You, which basically is an attempt at presenting his case to the public. But he's been on this hobby horse in his professional life his whole life. And he's one of these people who basically are hard problem deniers. They basically say, I don't even think there is a hard problem to contend with. And I think that's if it would be because of like a flaw of character that you recognize in a person, it would seem like it's a reasonable thing to assume that maybe they're just playing a little, game. But Anil says seems like such a uh, kind and honest person that it only leaves me with the understanding that some people must have such a different perception of the world and themselves in it, from which even postulating that there is no hard problem of consciousness makes sense. Like, I can't even imagine how you view the world in which this statement makes sense. But quite a few smart people think that's the case. Dan Dennett is another person like that. Dan Dennett goes even further. He says that even the like consciousness itself is an illusion, which of course doesn't make any sense because the whole point of, he says, it only seems like you're conscious, but the seeming, this is something that Sam Harris always points out, the seeming itself is the consciousness. It doesn't matter how it come about, the seeming is the thing we're talking about. So it's almost like trying to explain it away. So the hard problem of consciousness is essentially that what you can say that there's functions in the brain that are correlated with different states of consciousness that we experience, but at no point you get to go, here's where consciousness all of a sudden becomes whatever it is, because you can't translate one to the other. They're not the same kind of thing. What is your perception of it, and what made you think about this more specifically recently?
No, you mentioned in the last members live of did you say David Deutsch? I forget who you said, but someone said that you can't observe the simulation from within the simulation. I think you said, right, or something to that extent.
I did, or I
Yeah,
quoted
you
someone.
did. I think you were quoting someone. I forget who you were quoting. Was it Bernardo Hopkins? Was it
Bernardo Hopkins,
Bernardo?
Bernardo
No, I think
Kastrup.
Castro. Yeah, someone you said something to the extent of you cannot prove the simulation from within the simulation.
It doesn't ring a bell to me, but maybe there's something I'm spacing on.
Okay, I might be misremembering that. But what I was thinking about more of is if there's a correlation or a connection between consciousness and the simulation. And the reason why is because I heard that I posted this meme of this Buddhist kind of saying that our lives are a droplet of water separating from the ocean, right? Which is, and when we're young, the droplet is rising, and when we age, the droplet is falling, and then it reemerges. Death is reemerging with the body of water. And I was wondering if there's like a correlation, or not a correlation, but a similarity between consciousness and the simulation, in the sense that we can't necessarily understand consciousness from being the droplet, right? It could only be, or maybe it just can't be understood, but only experienced.
I don't know if necessarily I would separate these things. First of all, it might be a fractal, so there might be information in the unitary instance of consciousness that resembles some form of the unified consciousness, or not. It's one of those. And the other thing I would say that I think understanding is an instance of this connection to the more unified consciousness. So true understanding, I would say, is a state of being that encompasses some form of resembling true operation informationally of what the real thing is doing. And there's a feeling attached to it. There's deep catharsis in it. When you really understand something, it's not just a matter of you seem to understand. When you truly understand, it's almost like a universal thing. It's almost like a check mark that reality goes, yep. And it feels almost like deep peace. At least to me, it does. There's like a full encompassing of whatever that thing that you truly understood. But before getting into like the really like philosophical weeds, I am interested because you have such an exploratory mind, and you had experience in academia, you had experience in business, and you try to always stay agnostic and humble about everything. So if I have to ask you, not in terms of truth claims, just in terms of intuition, and your answer might be something like, I have no idea, I never thought about it, whatever you think the right answer is. But if I ask you, Nico, your intuition, with being on this planet however many years you were on it, do you feel that, so first of all, is the hard problem of consciousness, is it salient to you? Do you see it? Do you see what the problem there is?
Oops, sorry. Yeah, I think I understand what it's about, which is that it's hard to prove. I don't even know. Consciousness is such an amoeba to me, where I don't even know. Like I think of it. From what my training says, what my gut says is like, okay, we have neurons, we have a neural network. These are classical systems, and it must be that consciousness is this emergent property from a very classical system, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, from my recent experiences, I think there's something way deeper than an emergent property from a classical system. I think there might be a field, maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you measure this field, right? There's no instrument I can create to measure this, and so I don't even know how to approach it, except and I was talking to Carter about this earlier, which is like, if you think about scientifically, when you try to explore a phenomenon in a space, you need axes that can span that cover that and span that phenomenon, that can span that space. And so when I think of it in terms of consciousness, I think of, well, what if the axes are qualia, right? What if that's kind of what we have to work with? And what if the science of consciousness is a science of qualia, right? Of understanding qualia and our senses. And but as far as I'm pretty basic when it comes to this problem, because I've been trained very classically. So for me, I've just ignored this. But now that now that I think there's something deeper, I don't know how to approach it, right? I don't know how to use a scientific method on it. And then what I feel like the most comforting framework for me to study this is to not try to study it, right? To just experience it and try to connect to it, and let it go, right? Let this idea of like, what is this problem? I think for me, maybe the hard problem of consciousness is trying to understand the fact that why do you have to frame it like a problem, right? Like, or why is it a problem? Why is
Well,
it?
if you're trying to answer the question, then it's a conundrum, let's say.
Is that the wrong question then? Do you think maybe?
No, because it seems to be the closest thing to us. The thing that gives everything meaning is the moment of experience. So I think it's a natural thing to ask, what is it? Maybe the answer at the end is letting go of it is having it in full, sure. But I don't think asking the question is silly. I mean, it's completely understandable.
Well, I wonder if it's like, I wonder if it's like, what is the meaning of life or whatever, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Right.
And, even when Lex asks Elon, right, what would you ask this like kind of all omnipotent AGI? He said, what is outside the simulation? Mm-hmm. Which I thought was interesting, because I guess I didn't think about asking about what's outside the simulation, but I think that's a better question maybe than what is the meaning of life. But yeah, I don't know. For me, the question of like, what is consciousness? I don't know how to answer that, or even like approach.
To me, the most ultimate question is about what is the ultimate question, which was also the punchline in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The punchline was, what is the ultimate question? because because what's outside the simulation? What is the meaning of life? So what's the meaning of life is one emergent level of that question, because you're basically asking something that you believe is the most fundamental thing you can ask about this thing that you're part of. I'm life, so therefore I'm going to ask the most fundamental question I can possibly think of about it. What is the meaning of it? What is it for? Right? Is there a teleology there? Another form of that would be a more expansive form of that is what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, which is how it's framed in the book. And then it's the same question, just about the larger totality of everything. It's like not just about life, but like generally everything, the existence, universe. What is it for? Really, is what you're asking. Like, what is the meaning of it? What is the point of it? Right? Is there a point to it? Another layer, which is what Elon was trying to communicate, is like I want to go one layer above that. Is what's outside of that? What's outside of the world that is simulated? What is it like in the world that is simulating us? But then if you keep playing this, you realize, oh, you can literally go forever and keep asking these, which is what I call the container problem. But then the ultimate question is, what kind of question can I ask that will encompass everything that is possible to ask about? That's really the main question. And so I think he nailed it there. And to me, that is the question. What is the ultimate question that we can ask? And is the wildest thing would be if the answer 42 actually means something in relationship to it. But yeah, what did you want to say?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I recently watched Contact
Beautiful.
again, which
What a great
it's
film.
like the best movie ever, right? But you know, she asked the alien, or she asked her father, who really was an alien, right?
Alien father.
Or she asked Chase Hughes, I should say.
Exactly.
She asked him, "Why did you build this thing?" And he said, "We did it." And then like she asked him like, "What do we do next?" And or like, "Why did you contact us?" And then he said, "Well, you contacted us. We're just relaying this message, this signal, right?"
Mhm.
And then he said, "This is just the way it's done. Like this isn't. There is no why." Like he was kind of like shutting down all her questions, right, and saying, "This is just the way it is." And then she says, "Well, what's next?" And then he says, "Baby steps. This is the first step," you know. And I kind of felt like it's a pretty powerful movie because if we were to come in contact with aliens, it's a very natural question, but there was the sense of like peace that came from that scene.
That's interesting that you took it that way. You know what I was hearing in the message, and of course it's not like there's a right answer, but it's so interesting to watch how different people perceive it. What I got from that speech was the beauty in existence, which is essentially kind of like what I saw in my visions too with DMT, which is that even God doesn't know, so to speak. And that is a beautiful thought. I know for some people it's disturbing, but to me there's something beautiful because it's something we share. So what I saw in that speech is that because they are this like super advanced civilization, but they're saying to you very lovingly, they're like, yeah, we don't know either. Like this mystery is with us since the beginning till probably the end, and this is the thing that unifies all civilizations on all levels of emergence. And I found this to be a really beautiful thing. And then obviously they know more, so they're like, but there's still so much to expect and to be excited about. That's kind of like that's why I was very hopeful. But at the same time, maybe that was implied only in my brain. I don't know if they even meant to do that.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That is. I think that was the intended like message of it, and it was beautiful. Yeah, you're right. It was kind of like the sense um, of connectedness between all life in the universe is this ultimate question, right? Or, but there was like kind of like there was kind of like a peace about that, you know.
Mhm.
Like it was kind of like a weird like I don't want to say reverence, but maybe like like I don't know.
So the thing I wanted to finish it with, and then please give me your thoughts, was that what was implied in that for me And again, this is what I mean by maybe that's only in my brain, but what was implied there was we're going to find out, but we're all going to find out together. It's almost like that piece of information cannot be known by only one thing in existence. It must be known by all of existence at once, because it's just that kind of a thing. So it's like you can't have a bubble of emergence that touches upon it, behind which everything follows. It's not like one of these things like, well, this civilization has this level of sophistication of technology, and then this civilization doesn't yet, but after a little bit of time, this civilization will catch up and they will also have this kind of a technology. This knowledge about the ultimate fate of everything and who left the structure and the wormholes, which by the way, I believe that the code in the laser is the same way. Like, nobody knows who made it, but everybody who kind of discovered, learn how to interact with it and do things with it, but nobody knows who made it, basically. And it's just one of these things that when we will find out, everything in existence will know it instantly together. And to me, that was kind of like this very unifying, beautiful, and hopeful idea.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the code,
Where you cut off.
Yeah. A lot of people say about the code, they say it creates more questions than answers.
That's most scientific discoveries, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's almost like people go into it expecting to, like, kind of see it, and then expecting to kind of like get some sort of closure or something, and then it seems like it does the opposite, right? It kind of just opens this can of worms. But there is also the sense of like for you, for instance, you always are constantly steering us away from trying to interpret the semantics of it, right? Or trying to,
for now,
for this stage of tech, right? But in some sense, it seems like you are at peace with finding the code, seeing the code, and not trying to reverse engineer the code, right? Which is like very challenging from like my scientific training. That's like very challenging. It's very frustrating.
Not quite. So it's not that I'm. Well, first of all, yes, I am at peace with never knowing anything beyond this point, because I don't know how. Well, anyways, yeah, I'm kind of like in this very happy place where whatever. Stephen Hawking once was asked how he handled his condition. It might be a weird example to use, but he said, well, doctors gave me 2 months to live. And this was 45 years ago. So every day after these 3 months was a gift. What else can one ask for? That's what he said. So I wanted to know that I moved the dial of human understanding to any degree. I know I did that. Either whatever understandings will come from it, I didn't really think about it, but that was my entire, like, that's what I want. I wanted to find something that nobody has ever found before. I did that. I'm happy. Now, it's interesting because there's definitely a lot more to come, of course. But I think that this attitude kind of came along because there's maybe part of me that knows that if I would start getting obsessed about it, I would kind of lose my mind. Like, because it's like there's can we like, it's, you gotta take it in the pace that it presents itself in. So yeah, on the one hand, I'm at peace with whatever will not manifest, but there's with me pushing back against necessarily trying to decipher it right now is actually because I understand from my perspective that might actually confuse us, and if we're not careful, it might confuse us to an ultimate degree. So if we're going to start building on something that isn't, if you're going to start building on something that is kind of like that but not it, you running the risk of everybody kind of will create this super thick conformational bias layer of something that it isn't. And then you can't really undo it. I've seen this now in action. People building their world models on super thick layer of complete lies and nonsense, and they're convinced that's reality when it's not at all what's going on, right? So I've seen this happen in real time. I'm like, well, how easy would it be for people to say, here's the kind of the symbols, and then the next message will be, okay, well, if this is kind of the symbols, let's try and work with that. And then 5 iterations in, nobody's going to remember that somebody said, well, this, it's not exactly the symbols, it's kind of the symbols. People are going to say, well, these are the symbols. And then people are going to start running with that. But those are not the symbols. So then you're like building all this stuff on top of something that it isn't, and you're just going to get into infinity in the wrong direction. That's actually one of the main reasons why I'm resisting it, because if you can present to me a way to truly record it, I'll be very happy to build on top of it, and I will be very happy to bring cryptographers and language experts and build on that. But right now, you're asking language experts to work on a lot of guesswork of really nothing. That's why I'm resisting it. Not because I'm happy to just stay in one place. It's just the tools are so coarse currently that it's just it's almost, it's worse than doing nothing. You might be moving in the wrong direction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it reminds me of Kurt Mongol. I saw this interview years ago where Kurt Mongol interviewed a scientist about this like ancient text. You probably know about it more than I do, but I remember the scientist saying that without a good baseline, you just can't interpret text. Like just out in a vacuum, you just can't interpret text, right? You need this massive baseline. So that's also interesting too. Even if we had a way to record it, right? It's not clear you can decipher it.
Yeah, I always say that when we interpret ancient human languages, we have an enormous baseline. We know it's a human language. That's first of all. So that's already giving us a lot of information because we know how people communicate. Even if there's variety, it's not infinite variety. There's only so many different ways in which people can do things in terms of writing and syntax and all that stuff. And that gives us a very strong foundation to play on. Here, we know nothing. Nothing. We don't know its language. We don't know its code. We don't know what it's doing. We don't know part of what it is. We don't know what layer of reality we're looking at it. Is it part of cognition? Is it part of physics, whatever the physical world is? Is it some kind of a hybrid between whatever these things are that we don't even know what they are? There's so many maybes, and there's not even one solid ground to stand on outside of the fact everybody can see. I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine that I haven't spoken to in a while because we just didn't have time. And he's one of these people. I actually have an interview with him on my channel, Antonio Mullins. And he truly is one of these, rare individuals that I'm comfortable of calling him a genius. He definitely wouldn't be comfortable with that, but he, for all intents and purposes, he is a genius. Just, like across the board, doesn't matter what it is. Highest ranked everything, basically, MIT, PhD, 5 GPA, like this kind of like crazy perfect track record of everything that has to do with intellectual endeavor, right? And also in the marketplace. So he was one of the his team is the one that actually built the modern version of the Netflix algorithm. He worked on technologies and AI and finance and everything he ever touched intellectually, he was the best at, right? And the depth and the breadth of his thought is so deep that sometimes it's actually it's uncomfortable. It's very intimidating because really there's not much I can say that he didn't already think about from here till Sunday in 2039. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I'm always playing catch up constantly, and that it feels like work. You know what I mean? But it's not his fault. He's just that smart. So I'm mentioning this because I had a conversation with him today about the laser, and he never tried it. And I'm like, I don't know why you wouldn't just, but he gave me this perspective. He said, look, I'm on your side, obviously, right? I want you to succeed in life. I love you. I want you to do well. But if you're asking me as a scientist, no matter how many ways you're going to express it to me in a beautiful language or poetically or whatever it is, I will always have to think about it in terms of the kind of pushback you're going to get when you're going to be facing people like me that aren't necessarily on your side, because I know how they think, right? So I'm telling you that unless you can show me something that is empirical, we can run very far, but you will never go beyond a certain point. That part has to be in place. And he said it's simple, but it sounds like from what you're saying it's very difficult. He said if you can, it's as simple as if you can have two people reading and giving me sequence of something, I will immediately know that what you're saying is like 100% true, like what you're saying is real. And that's simply because of statistical improbability. Like there's no way that the people can guess the same, digits, like 7-8 digits in. It's just not probable. But I said, yeah, like the way the code appears, you just can't. I'm like, I would never place my bet there. Like I don't even know why that would convince you. He said that will absolutely convince me. And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then I realized you can say a lot about intuition and impression and all of that, but to a particular kind of mind that dominates the technical world, that's just simply not the kind of noises you have to make something palatable for them. It's just impossible. And I know, again, you also spend time in that world, and I'm sure you also have your opinions about that. But it was difficult for me to imagine why it would be this way. Like, how come in a world that is dominated by intricate connections made in the mind, let's say, because that's what creative thought is, right? Even in science, you have a lot of that. Why is it so hard for somebody to understand that there might be modalities in the world that we haven't yet explored that can be brought to bear to discover something new? Why is it always folded back onto this? No, but it has to be like, you have to give me concrete data, otherwise there's no way that it's going to go beyond a certain point. And I have to be honest, I don't really have I don't know how to feel about that. The best thing I could say is like, I said it in a different way, but what I meant to say basically, I said, look, I'm in a weird position here because I have tremendous respect and reverence for your intellectual ability, but I just know you're wrong. I don't know how else to express this. I just know you're wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I have friends that are some of the smartest people. Like, I'm convinced that I know two people that are at the top, right? But that's, and that's probably a very limited statement, but these guys are quantum mechanicists, like hardcore, right? And I talked to them about Penrose's theory of consciousness arising from microtubules. And ultimately Penrose is proposing a quantum consciousness, theory. And a lot of these smart people will actually say Penrose is a quack, right? And I get it. That's a very provocative theory. That theory is very controversial. But to call someone like Penrose a quack, like, is like, what ground do you have to stand on to say that? Like, for me, that's like, I disagree with Penrose. I'm skeptical of it, but I would never call him a quack. And he's a really, really smart guy.
I think they mean to say he's out of his depth in a particular domain. Like, it's not his domain. I think that's the more fair.
It's true. It's not his domain, right? But and maybe that is something that, like, maybe sometimes we get lucky, right? And like our domain, like we're extremely successful in our domain, but when we look at the rest of the world and we try to piece it together, we're off, right? But I still would not go to the extent of calling him a quack. But what I was trying to say, I guess, is ultimately, and I think Sean Carroll talked about this, right? Where it's like how to be taken seriously in a scientific community. There's this immense burden of proof that you have to bring to the table, and I don't know if I agree with that method or that method. So I saw this. I came across this guy named Ken Wilber. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. I read his
Yeah,
really thick book.
I don't know if he's respected or not, but he said something interesting. He said like, if you're not in touch with it, it doesn't matter how smart you are or what you can say about it. Like you're wrong, right? Like you have to be in touch with it. And what I took away from that is like, like can you take Albert Einstein versus this little kid who's been meditating his young life, and could naturally I would say, okay, well, Einstein obviously is understands the universe more profoundly than this kid, but I don't know, like maybe that kid could understand the universe more profoundly than Einstein in that capacity, right? Like he doesn't have the mechanistic framework for understanding consciousness of the universe, but he's tapped in, right? He's sitting there on an island and he's tapped into it. And I think maybe that being tapped in is something that I'm taking a lot more, I'm giving a lot more credit to now, right? Rather than being able to articulate some mathematical framework about it.
I think you pointed to something very important, and I think it is the difference in full, which is that if your presupposition is that the world is ultimately something in which consciousness exists, you will invariably and always run into this realm and into this wall that states that unless you can define it, it's more likely an illusion than anything that is worth contending with. But if you allow for the possibility that whatever consciousness is actually fundamental, then being in touch with it is the only true and only way to actually know it. And I think that is the difference in perception. And obviously, Ken Wilber definitely falls in the latter category. I do think it complicates it beyond the need, and he invents his own language, and that's always suspect to me. But I think you pointed to the right thing. It's the thing to tease out there is there a possibility in someone's mind that consciousness is actually fundamental? Very often, however, and this is the issue with, again, this is one of the biggest hurdles to clear with truly capable and smart people, is that they are so successful so often that they are completely justified, even no matter how tacitly, in assuming that they're right and you're wrong, even if they don't mean it in a condescending way. It's just the more likely possibility, and it is more likely that they're right and you're wrong. It's almost like an objective truth about the situation, and that is a very difficult thing to overcome, because they need to do less work trying to reframe everything they think in certain ways, because they know that they looked at something, they made an assumption about it, they acted, it worked. They looked at something, made an assumption about it, they acted, it worked. It's only so many times that happens in life before you go, yeah, I'm nothing but net. Like, I get it, most people don't, that's how it is. And that kind of, it's a difficult situation, because they are right most of the time. It's not like they're just full of it, they are right most of the time. So how do you then bring about something new and override this rightness? I think the only way to do that is to prove something that is actionable. This is why, to me, thinking about it just in terms of cognition is never going to bring anything of substance, because it will always have this ever receding horizon of, well, it's just hearsay. Even if you have 1 million people that say the same thing, sure, there's some consensus, but it's a lot of people saying it without you actually being able to measure it or anything like this. To me, the measurement will always surpass the thing, And actually, funny enough, he said that to him, it's the consensus that surpasses the thing. So I don't really know how to think about this. And actually, I never really thought about that. That some physicalist scientists, for them, the consensus is more important than any other thing. Would you say that for you, it's that way?
Yeah, I mean, the probability that you somehow convinced everyone of this phenomenon is like, for me, I've seen so many people. I mean, I want to do it. For me, I'm a little bit worried because every time I go into this space, I completely change the trajectory of my life. You know, like
Yeah, like
entirely.
yeah, I think we
And I'm
talked.
scared of that right now because
Mhm.
I don't. It's interesting. I don't want things to change right now, or at least I'm on a mission, and I feel like taking that would not be the right time. But ultimately, after seeing so many people kind of report it and not like, I think that's a huge data point, right? And I think even someone like, you know, Hamilton Morris or Rick Strassman or even Andrew, God, what's his
Gallimore.
Gallimore, you know, they expressed uh, kind of like suspicion or whatever. But then I've also seen them come into faith with like people that have said, no, I have seen it, right? And so it's interesting to see their faces and their responses to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's, and like, you know, I've heard, I think I've heard this thing where it's like, well, Alex Gray was talking about this before, right? But it seems like there's a very clear difference between these two types of code, right?
What kind? Sorry.
It wasn't Alex Gray, but his wife.
Oh yeah. It looks completely different to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and I've seen symbols and stuff where I thought maybe that was like sacred, but I wouldn't say it was code, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I believe it.
No,
I'm
I'm asking you in
see.
terms of like in I know that you don't necessarily like the spotlight on you, but I am interested. So like, if you have to look into your scientific intuition, forget about what my work. When you're doing science research, everything, do you think that what you value more is consensus by many other people in the field, or measurement if it can be substantiated in some form? Which one is stronger for you? Because I think that, just to give you the context, that what Tony's point was, which I was surprised by, because I did not expect this to be the case. His point was, he actually thinks that no matter how much you measure, no matter even your conviction that you can't walk through the wall and everything, that's just still in your experience. So unless he can verify with other points of consciousness that for them that's also the experience, to him it's not as real. To me,
Yeah,
I don't need anyone else in the world. If I can make the measurement, I know it's there. So it's really weird. So
let me say it this way, right? So in 2020, before I entered these spaces, I thought you were gigafrying your brain. Right. I'm like, yeah, of course. Whatever you say about this space, I'm like, dude, you're freaking gigafrying your brain. Like, I'm not, like, you can say anything. I'm not listening, right? And so, and that was kind of the consensus of standard of like of neuroscience and of biology, right? Or at least the consensus that I was exposed to. Um, I didn't realize there was like a whole scientific underground that was like doing this research. And then I entered these spaces and I'm like totally on the opposite side of it now, right? Where I'm like, yeah, no, you're not gigafrying your brain actually. And it's so like, you know, in terms of if reality was a meter from 0 to 10, it's like going to 11 or 12, you know, it's like you're exceeding anything. So for me, it's like the most real thing I've experienced. And you know, back to the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster was on trial and you know they were trying to get her to say, you know, to denounce the experience. They're like, can you agree that all you have zero scientific data, that you would be asking us the same questions? And she's like, yeah, I agree with you. And then they said, okay, well then denounce that you've had this experience. And she said, I can't.
I can't.
Right. And for me, that's kind of where I'm at right now, where it's like, yeah, I might be, call me a biased data point. I don't care, but I can't denounce it anymore. Right. I can't simply call it as a gigafrying thing. So But from the outside of that experience, yeah, I was the first to cast the stone, right? I was like, yeah, this is total BS. So I don't know. I kind of have sympathy or patience with people that are in that realm.
But you still didn't answer my question. My question is about you separate from my work. What is, would you say that your intuition in terms of what you value more, the measurement or consensus by other people? Maybe it's a combination of the two, but just I'm purely asking. I'm asking. I'll tell you why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because I did not expect that kind of an answer from Tony, and he truly is a genius. So like his perception is so different than mine, but I don't think it's based on his intellect. That's just his bias.
Yeah.
What would you say is your bias?
So I am my scientific training says consensus means a lot because it's outside of my own experience, so it's non-biased.
Got
right?
it. Okay.
So it's averaged over many data points.
Okay, interesting.
So my rigorous training says consensus is huge, and the consensus that I've seen with this project has been a huge no-brainer for me. Where it's like, yeah, there's something there for sure. But you know what means more to me now is the actual experience of it, because then you're tapped into it, you're connected to it. But I understand where he's coming from. So I mean, to answer your question, I think it's a mixture of both. But I do understand where he's coming from, right? Like, I still am very scientific, like even just about like something like climate change, right? Like I subscribe to the consensus that climate change is happening, that a lot of very smart people are studying it. And although it is very complex, it is an anthropogenically driven phenomenon, right? But then there's also this other side where it's like, dude, we're human, we're on this rock. This rock is more robust than we are. Stop trying to control things and just kind of, you know, don't get lost in the sauce, right? Like try to just experience it. Don't get outraged and get a Greta Thunberg tattoo, right? But like, you know, and so I'm trying to learn to kind of like let go of that consensus mentality, which science is collectively one consensus thought of the world. It's like a consensus view of the world, right? So like even with like COVID vaccine, or sorry, I can't even talk about that. My bad. TikTok shop is amazing, dude. TikTok shop is freaking awesome, dude.
Let's say, what else? What other terrible things we can say? America is the best. They just shut us down. Wait, why did you disappear, Nico?
Yeah, Palantir just like drone struck me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I don't know. I would have a lot. I mean, dude, smart people are you know, if you're smart, you're gonna be biased to like this very mechanical scientific way, and it's like, yeah, I don't know.
It is an interesting thing because it's like, to me, it feels like it has to be like actually, let me also ask people in the chat. So what do you guys feel? Anybody who wants to share? What is that? Xena? Oh, okay. I was so confused. So what do you guys feel like? For you, consensus by other people is more important, or just the solidity of your experience? Because I think it gets to the bottom of like how certain people process reality and where it solidifies for them. Because I think it kind of gets to, I never really thought about that, but I think it's, the more I understand that the second I started having these sets of experiences that were super realistic, there's something about the signature of that experience that is so clear to me that is beyond the peril of what anything, you know, that I need in terms of proof that at least there's something real happening outside of this layer of reality. And then when people try to like bring it back to like, yeah, but let's first, you know, discern again whether this thing is even real. I'm like, for me, I don't need to do that. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I know that. And like, how can you possibly know? I realized that maybe what we've done, we've completely, removed the importance of direct experience from the data collecting process. It's almost like we said, unless we can create a consensus about it, it can't possibly be taken seriously. And it's almost like a truism that exists. But from where I'm sitting now, I'm like, yes, people can be deluded, and for that we need some consensus about certain things. But there are experiences that are so direct that they by themselves give you the full frontal understanding of what that is. You don't really need anybody else to tell you. And I think this is why also in the movie Contact, it was balanced with Matthew McConaughey was playing a priest, which what a great pick for that role. But I think that's exactly what it was representing. That in the beginning, especially the people, all the people that are siding with the scientists, that I never really thought about it in a storytelling as a storytelling tool. It was brilliant because if you're on the scientific perspective, when he comes about around, you immediately think of it as like, oh, here we go, this like airy fairy thinking, and what he was telling her from the beginning is the same thing she told them at the end. He told her like, I can't explain it to you, but I just know. Like I know this is real. And yet at the end, if you are scientifically minded, you have to be honest that because you know what she went through, that direct experience was sufficient for her to know that without any need for verification or consensus. And I think that's really where it lies, that there are certain truths that you can know directly. That I never thought about it that way.
But I mean, like, like if you talk to Eddie Bravo, right, who said the Earth is flat and nukes
Space
are
is fake. Yeah.
Nukes, he told Rogan, he's like, have you ever seen a nuke yourself? And it's like, and he's like, all that stuff is CGI, dude. There's all that, and it's like, it's you have to take the world at their word that the Earth is round, right? But I guess I've never been to Antarctica to look over the petri dish, right? To see the turtle, like. So I don't know. It's there, but when it comes to consciousness, I think we're all in the same boat, right? There is no real consensus.
Well, I think it's because it's very unique in that it is the N of one that requires no justification. Because the only thing that you need to know that it's real is the fact that you have it. That's it. It's that kind of a thing. It is both the descriptor and the thing itself. And it is, in fact, the only thing that you have that you know for sure. There's nothing else that you know more certainly than you're experiencing something right now, including everything else. Like everything else can be hearsay, but this cannot possibly be not, because it is. So that's exactly the point. It's not like you need justification for it, because what is meant by the word consciousness is the fact that anything is happening. So it's the one thing that is not under question at all. We're not talking about how it arises. We're not talking about how it comes about. We're talking about the fact that it is. You already find yourself in that situation. It's like if you're already in the water.
Isn't that crazy? Because we take that for granted as a species, right? That like this experience is the most ridiculous thing ever, right? Or like the most and it's almost like in Contact, and I'm stuck on this movie, but they asked her, what would you ask the alien, right? And she says, I would ask the aliens, how did you get through not destroying yourselves, right? How did you pass that violent phase of not total annihilation? And I feel like that's, maybe I'm watching too much news, but that is where we are very much so at this brink where it feels like, are we about to, are there mad people with their fingers on the buttons that could totally, just end this entire experience? Because I feel like some people don't appreciate what this really is, right? Yeah.
I'm very much of the mind at this point, living long enough, understand that when things are truly out of your hands, if it's really important, it will find you. Just turn off the TV. Just it's knowing any of this stuff is like it's actually not, unless you have, again, close people directly affected by that. That's a different story, right? But Otherwise, it's not lack of care. It's a depth of understanding. It's like if I can't do anything about it, literally nothing, or I know I'm not willing to put my efforts into it, like go and march the streets or do whatever, or even would that even make it like the fact that there's really nothing you can do about certain things, it's like, okay, so being worried about it does zero work, like literally zero work. If anything, it just adds suffering to the universe by you knowing about it and worrying about it. So I don't know. At this point, it's pretty clear to me that that stuff is just, I'm gonna aim for the best possible world I can, and if something happens in the middle that was outside of my control, I'm perfectly at peace with whatever it is, because I know that there's nothing I could do about it. But I think that aiming towards the best possible outcome is the only way forward. And by the way, this is why I'm launching this offshoot podcast. And I'm very happy about this first episode with David that's going to be coming. And yeah, I'm very excited. It's going to be really focused on this whole endeavor of humans moving from type 0 to type 1 civilization, and everything that entails, meaning societally, culturally, spiritually, technologically, and in the way that we cohere as a society. So
is that transhumanism going from type 0 to type 1?
no, 0 to
Do you
1
view
is,
this?
well, the in Kardashev scale, those are just caricature numbers, right? So, but it's basically type 1. I think controls everything on the planet, so weather, everything like that. Type 2 can control everything with the star, so like Dyson spheres, things like this. Type 3 is galactic. Type 4 is intergalactic and beyond. And some people postulate 5, 6, 7, which is like interdimensional and, all that stuff. But again, this is just an illustration. Obviously, I think that the real thing would take a very different form. It's just a caricature version to bring it about. But the reason that I'm focusing on that is because that's a vision that is infinitely scalable, and it can take all the possible forms that everybody can be excited about. Because if you are the explore if you are the explorer, then you will be excited about the possibility of going to other stars. If you're the gardener, you will be excited about the kinds of human connections we're going to be making, and the kinds of blossomings we'll be able to bring forth together in ways that nobody has ever seen before, because we're going to be focusing on that. So it's just the next level, the next iteration of possibility for humanity. If you're super into technology, whatever it entails in terms of integration and all of that good stuff. So all of these things together, I think, create a really beautiful picture, and it doesn't need to be one particular kind. That's the thing that always kind of drives me crazy about these attempts, that they invariably clump into the thing that they criticize themselves. They always get immediately into some other forms of um, tribes that on the surface of it look more open-ended, but they're still just as close-ended as anything else. I'm basically advocating for the end of all bins. No more bins. Like, we commit to a project because we think it's worth doing, and whatever needs to come for this project, we're going to do. There's not going to be, it's very easy to get lost in the most beautiful ideas and immediately somehow start vilifying some other group automatically as a result of the thing that you're doing. So like you become a hippie and you're like, well, there's no way that I'm doing something wrong. I'm loving Earth. I'm thinking about the trees. I'm like, yeah, but you somehow invariably end up always hating other people. How does that happen? Or all the other people that are not hippies like you. It's like,
I realized about Terence McKenna, where I had this perspective or perception that he was a hippie, and now I realized that he was kind of a pro technology, like he was kind of pro evolution in the sense of like all this technology, right? Like in a lot of his little pieces, I see the sense, like now that I'm reading his stuff differently, I'm seeing that it's almost creepy because it feels like he was alive yesterday talking about this moment right now. And it feels like his words are pushing us forward, right? Like, don't be afraid of this. Like, this is natural evolution. And he uses words like, oh, it's just going to get weirder, right? But that makes it's kind of like a comforting way of saying it. Like, yeah, all this is weird, but it's not scary, right? Or we shouldn't fear it, right? We should try to embrace it.
I think
But
he
yeah,
really was. Yeah, go ahead.
no. I think my perspective of him has changed, and I no longer think of him as a hippie. Or maybe hippies are ultimately that way. It's just that the hippies that I was exposed to tend to be a little bit anti-technology. You know?
He was a lot of things at once. I really do think that he was speaking out of what he called the eschaton at the end of time, because he believed that history is not being pushed from behind, but pulled towards an object at the end of time, and that he called the eschaton at the end of time. And I think he was speaking out of that place. So it's almost like he was speaking from the future back. So that's why it made so much, like, a lot of the stuff just made sense. And I think that he wasn't one thing. He definitely was. His predisposition was a hippie because he was saying all the right things in all the right directions. But he was also very critical of all the parts that were silly about the ideation in these cliques and these societies. So I think that, and he was, I think part of that was because he was a loner. He was very much comfortable, and this is really the only place he was comfortable, is being alone. So from that vantage point, it's very easy to see what everybody else are doing that is wrong. Which is also what gave him the little bit of this spicy side, which was also fascinating. But yeah, I do think that there's, what I'm saying is that what we want to aim for is the kind of language and usage of terms and aggregation of goals that does not require to use any term and or behavior that is that is unnecessarily boundary erecting. So, for example, people would say, this is a conversation that I've had recently with not Carter, the other David, the guy that I shared his video with you, and I'm going to bring him on the podcast. I'm till this day, I'm very grateful to Carter for sharing this video. It's wonderful, and he was talking really beautifully about, you know, the kinds of minds that should kind of like populate the future, and one of them is to say, you know, I forget what it was, but he said something positive about these kind of minds, and he said that is a healthy mind. And I said, well, interesting. This is exactly what I mean. Because I know you mean well, but the second you said healthy mind, you implied there's an unhealthy mind. And the second you implied there's an unhealthy mind, it automatically kind of does this, like, it has like an ick factor to it, right? Versus you say, okay, well, there's levels of emergence, and you can maybe say more harmonious or less harmonious. It's a lot less boundary erecting. So it's like there's less harmony here. That's fine. How do we harmonize it again? Right. So there's compassion towards it versus an ick factor. And this is constantly done this way. People would say a lot of beautiful things, and then they would use a term that is already preloaded with all these expectations by other humans that they know about, and then just move on. But they said that word already, and now that word signifies what sect of perception they belong to. And if we can just undo that and just try and speak in most neutral languages, like, hey, we want to build a Dyson sphere. Great. Who do we need to bring? We need artists. We need engineers. We need that. Wonderful. This is like an open-ended way of doing it without any judgment call about how any of these, bins that we just defined that we need, nothing positive or negative about them. It's just like, this is what we need for this project. This is why we're going to trust the process to unfold. But we're going to not judge each other's perceptions because they're not mutually exclusive. It's not all these transhumanists or there's people who are excited about technology. They're not transhumanists. They're excited about technology. That's a good thing. You can be excited about something else. You can be excited about plants and gardens. That's beautiful. Those are not mutually exclusive. It's the fact that it's implied that if you're transhumanist, you don't care about flowers and gardens. That's not true, but it's implied in the language. So if we can just remove these definitions that don't serve anything and try and move forward in a way that is more open-ended and compassionate towards each other's predispositions, because we're different. We're not all the same. We're just not all the same. And that's the beauty of us. This is not some kind of a thing that needs to be rectified. That's the beauty of the the different kinds of operative functions that humans can serve. I don't know. To me, it was always clear that that's the most beautiful thing about us. Not the differences and the way they work together is much more beautiful to me than even the idea that we're all one. You can use it as a guiding principle, but it's actually the how everything fits really beautifully is I love watching that. Okay, so I think I'll have to adjourn for today. I know there was a lot of comments. Nico, yeah, I always appreciate you for coming because you always revive my my zeal for these things. So I really, really appreciate that, man.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of very, recently I set up this quantum computer, a browser thing that I got a bunch of compute credits for this thing, and I got some IBM compute credits, and they have this quantum computer thing. And I was going to try to set up, I don't know how to program in logic gates, but I wanted to kind of like get some little like, I don't want to call it B-roll, but just some animations of like simulations and stuff. But I'll add it to the Discord when I get around to it. But yeah, there's like really cool technology that is emerging right now that can allow us to simulate a lot of really cool shit.
Like so what? Like what, for example?
Well, quantum simulations are really exciting for me, like particle scattering or light scattering. And so this idea of like, is there more information and like something as simple as a laser, it's like interesting because from a scientific point of view, it's like, well, we know everything that's to be known about it. But then from another perspective, there's a lot of information that could be embedded in it that I want to see if we could simulate. But so yeah, I guess I'm on this like simulation trip right now where I'm just trying to simulate the world. So yeah, I'm like, I'm on that trip.
That would be hilarious to find out in the like kind of like in retrospect later that basically you are the person who later basically simulates everything, and you're just talking to me back in time to kind of see what I'm doing. You're like you're like probing.
Well, dude, I'm the guy in Contact. I'm the Christian radical guy.
Oh, you're not the multi-gazillionaire who died in space at the end. We're just like.
No, you're right. I want to be that guy. The guy in space. Yeah, that guy is cool.
He's the one that just like, yeah, I just built you another one. Don't worry about it.
I feel like that was David Carter, but now that I think about it, yeah, that is. Yeah, I built one in Japan. It's hidden in Japan, which is like the best.
Yeah, if you're gonna hide something, yeah, bro, you're the man. Thank you so much. Everybody follow Nico on TikTok, NIKOMACKAY. Again, NIKOMACKAY. I always appreciate you, man. You're a blessing.
Yeah.
Hey, good night, brother. All right, if you guys want to follow me, it'll be Danny Goller on TikTok and on Instagram. It'll be Goller Danny on X. Just flip them. It'll be LaserX83 on Twitch. And it'll be Dango Thoughts on YouTube, DANGO Thoughts on YouTube, where you can also join. Yeah, thank you. Where you can also join the membership program that gives you early access to all my content, private things from my life that will exist nowhere else but in YouTube members. Will give you access to my weekly lives that are separate from the daily lives. They're for members only, and we dive much deeper into subjects there, from mathematics to aliens to philosophy to whatever you can think of. It's whatever members want to talk about, and we dive really deeply into that. And if you join from the second tier and up, it will give you access to Zoom calls with me once a month with all the members from the second tier and up. Just make sure that you email me to the email that is listed there if you do sign up to the second tier of membership, so I can send you an email. Also, please come join our Discord group, which is a wonderful community where we exchange these ideas. You can find the link both on YouTube and on TikTok in the link tree. And you can visit our website, codeofreality.com, where you can find our merch and our lasers and a lot of good stuff that are updates about the project. So that will be it for tonight. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for our beautiful moderators, Chris and Ebony and Guru and Jessica, I really appreciate you guys. And thank you so much for all the community members, old and new. Eva Lycon, you're always a doll. Thank you. Val, I appreciate you. Who else is with us here? Can't go through all of them right now, but I really appreciate you guys. I really do. Have a good night. Peace and love. Ciao. Have a good night, everyone.